What's going on, family? Look, so earlier, I made a short where I was talking about inheritance, and I didn't just want to leave it at a short because I wanted to give a deeper explanation of what I meant by that. And on there, I was talking about, we have to leave more than just a financial inheritance for our children. And I understand, the word tells us that a good man leaves an inheritance for his grandchildren, his children's children. And one thing that I don't want a lot of us to just get um, held down to is a financial inheritance. Because and I want to be very careful of how I say this because I don't ever want to misinterpret the word of God, I was just praying about it because I want us to be able to understand that on top of leaving a financial inheritance, we have to be able to leave an inheritance of stewardship. It's so much I want to, get into with that. But we have to be able to leave an inheritance of stewardship to our children's children. Because I want to give you an example of something. Just imagine this, right? If we're supposed to leave an inheritance for our children's children, but we do not teach our children stewardship, then the inheritance that we provide to our child, it won't make it to our grandchildren. Because once I leave that inheritance absent of stewardship, they may squander the money that has been given to them. And it may not make it to the children's children how it needs to. So on top of leaving a financial inheritance, we need to be able to leave an inheritance of stewardship. We need to be able to teach our children how to maintain the things that are going to be entrusted to them. And as fathers, as men, we need to be able to be the prime example of showing our children what it looks like to be a good steward over the things that you're entrusted to. One being the man of the household. You have to be able to steward over everybody within that household. You have to be in a position to be able to help everybody within that household. And I made a video before, talking about when godly men get in position. I said in that video, men have to be in a position of doing things first. Everybody in the household needs to be able to see that man in that household doing the things that he's trying to teach everybody else to do. He has to be in a position of doing it first. So if you really want to leave an inheritance of stewardship to your children, they need to be able to see it on you as well, not just hear it. Yes, we need to be able to teach them and give them the information that is needed on how to steward over things that are entrusted to them. But they need to be able to see a live representation of what it means to be a good steward over things. They need to see what it looks like to take care of things that God has given you. They need to be able to see you take care of your finances. They need to see you taking care of your wife. They need to see you taking care of the household. They need to see you taking care of things at work. They need to truly understand what it means to be a good steward, because you don't ever want to leave them something that they're going to squander later on when you're gone. Because it won't make it to the children's children that you were intended to leave it for. Then on top of that, inside of the short as well, I said we need to be able to leave an inheritance of wisdom and knowledge. We need to be able to teach our children the things that God needs them to know. We can't leave our children out here blind. We can't leave them out here spiritually blind. We can't leave them out here emotionally blind. No, we need to be able to give them the knowledge that God has provided us to teach to them. We need to be able to teach them to understand the word of God. We need to be able to teach them to understand what it is that God is calling them to in their lives. Our children need us. They need more than just a financial inheritance. The financial inheritance is good. But if they don't understand the proper foundation, which is God, that inheritance is built off of, they're going to squander all of the gifts and the blessings that is passed down to them. They're not going to be able to understand. They're not going to be able to understand clearly what it is that God is calling them to. They're not going to understand the vision that God has provided them inside of their lives. If we do not leave an inheritance of stewardship, if we do not leave an inheritance of wisdom, if we do not leave an inheritance of knowledge, we have to be able to teach them the things in this life that they need to know. We need to be able to teach them the things in this life that God is trying to show them. We need to be able to teach them how to be obedient to what is given to them. And in order for them to truly learn it, we have to become the very thing that we're teaching them. We have to. In the same way that we operate in the likeness of Christ, our children are operating in the likeness of us. The things that we see Christ doing, we need to be able to implement those things. And the things that our children see us doing, they're going to want to implement that as well. We have to be able to be the live representation of the things that they need to be in this life. And on top of leaving an inheritance of stewardship, wisdom, and knowledge, we need to be able to leave them an inheritance of discipline and instructions. Just as I said, Apostle Paul, he spoke in the book of Ephesians. He said, fathers, do not tempt your children in anger, but raise them up in instruction and raise them up in discipline. We need to be able to leave an inheritance of discipline to our children. They need to be able to know what not to do and what to do. They need to know when to react and when not to react. They need to know when to say things and when not to say things. They need to be able to have that discipline. But you have to be the representation that they need to see how to be disciplined in situations. If they see you flying off the handle in all of these situations, what do you think they're going to do? What do you think they're going to do? I'm gonna give you a personal example. I used to be an individual that dealt with anger issues, bad. When I say bad, look, it was crazy. Because I didn't know, one, I wasn't raised in that type of discipline. I wasn't. I just went off the things that I've seen inside of my life. And I reacted that way in every single relationship. Every single relationship, I had these anger issues. I had these anger problems. I was cussing people out. I was fighting. I was arguing. I was doing all of these negative things. I was not disciplined. And my children seen a lot of those things. And if I would have kept going in the way that I was, that's eventually who they would have become. They wouldn't have known that this. I could have told them, hey, man, you need to be disciplined in life. You don't need to do this. You don't need to do that. But if they see me doing the opposite of what I'm telling them, what do you think they're going to think it's okay to do? Because they're watching what I'm doing. Even though they're hearing what I'm saying, they're watching what I'm doing. And a lot of times what you do will cancel out what you say. I'm going to say that again. A lot of what you do will cancel out a lot of what you say. People are paying attention to what you do. That's like you have a lot of women. They may say, look, yes, you telling me you love me, but you're not showing it to me. You may have a man right now inside of a relationship. He telling a woman that he loves her, but he out cheating on her. He tells us that he loves her, but he out abusing her. What you do will cancel out what you say. So if I would have kept going on the way that I was, my children would have eventually picked up those habits that I had. But now, and I thank God for it, because a lot of times my children, they see me praying. They see me praying. They see me reading the word. And my youngest son, man, it was so beautiful, man. I'm so happy to see it. He said, Daddy, how do you spell God's name? And I go through it with him. He said, I want to write him a letter. This is my 4-year-old son. This is my 4-year-old son saying this. I want to write God a letter. And it really almost is about to bring tears to my eyes right now. Like it was such a beautiful moment. It was such a beautiful moment because I wasn't expecting it. But it just goes to show that they watch you. They see what you're doing. They sit there and see me sitting here praising God, worship Him. They see these things and they imitate the same thing. And so I just want us to understand as parents, as a whole, as parents, not just men, but as parents as a whole. We need to do more than just leave an inheritance of finances for our children. We need to be able to leave an inheritance of discipline, of instruction, of wisdom, of knowledge, of obedience, of stewardship. We need to be able to leave those things, because if we leave all of that, we don't have to worry about the financial inheritance that we leave for them. It's going to make it to who it needs to make it to, and continuously make it to who it needs to make it to. So I just wanted to be able to bring that to you and just go deeper in that conversation. I didn't just want to leave it at a short. I just didn't. I just didn't want to just leave it at a short, because I'm going to take it a bit further as well. When you look at the prodigal son, he wanted his inheritance up front. He wanted his inheritance up front. And I'm just making a statement with this. He wanted his inheritance up front. And as we read through the text of what happened, he squandered all of his money. He squandered all of his money. Now, do you think in that situation, if you put yourself in that situation, do you think he had proper stewardship? Even if he received his money early, all of this inheritance, he received it early. Do you think he had proper stewardship? Because if he had proper stewardship, even though he got his money earlier, he would have thought different. Maybe I shouldn't do this. I shouldn't do that. And that's what it looks like when we don't leave an inheritance of stewardship to our children. They go out and they do things that they shouldn't do. They go out and spend all of the money that you've given them when they shouldn't do that. If we would have given them stewardship, they would have thought about it. Even if they were mad at us, that still would have been instilled inside of them. But even in that story, I want you to understand this. He left out with a lot financially. He left out with a lot financially, but a little spiritually. Right? He went through everything that he had to go through. God allowed him to go through all of these things, right? But when he came back with less money than he left out with, but more spiritually than what he left out with. And a lot of times that's what happens. But he was still blessed and prosperous at the end. And that is the way that we want our children to be. When we leave this earth, we want them to have everything that they need spiritually. We want them to have everything that they need financially. We want them to have everything that they need through obedience, instruction, wisdom, all of these things. We want them to be able to have all that they need to be able to maintain all that is given to them. Because they're going to have to maintain a lot more than just finances. But we need to be able to teach them how to maintain those things. And we need to be the representation that they need to see in maintaining those things. Be the example that you want your children to be. And I say that to everybody. Be the example that you want your children to be. All right? I love y'all.